Getting a divorce? Find out the legal system's best kept secret to making the process easier and the outcome happier. Up next on Toronto Speaks Legal Advice. Welcome to Toronto Speaks Legal Advice. I am your host, Natalka Falcomer. Tonight, our topic is family law. Answering your questions tonight will be my guest, Andrew Feldstein, family lawyer and managing partner at the Feldstein Family Law Group. Thank you so much for coming on today, Andrew. And I'm actually particularly excited to have you on because you are an advocate of something that I'm always pushing for. In a way, bringing justice to everybody, and particularly the family legal realm or the family law realm, because that is something that touches almost everybody. And one thing I always like my guests to do, I love putting them on the spot this way. I want to hear the most memorable case that you've had and the legal principles that you can draw out and tell our audience today.
Well, there's a few different type of cases. Some I can talk about and some I can't talk about for confidentiality reasons.
Absolutely.
But for example, one of them, and I'll give you an example of a case with a child where I was examining the mother, and the mother did not want to let that child spend even an overnight with the father. And you're trying to find out what's the reason. You're thinking, are you going to say he's an alcoholic? Is he a drug addict? Something really bad. I want to ask her, why shouldn't this child be able to spend overnight time with the dad? And her answer was, well, it's, I'll just make up a name, it was John, it gets in the way of John and Mummy time. And I saw the reaction you had, because when I asked that question and I heard that answer, my mouth also dropped open. Here was someone saying that her time with her child was more important than the child having basically any type of relationship with the father.
See, and that goes to show how difficult family law is, because something we were sort of discussing before we started, emotions sometimes blind how the actual justice system works. You know, and I'm hoping to help today and remove that blindness, if you will, by having people call in and answer some questions today for them. But you find that very frequently in the family law realm. Now, from that principle, what did you learn from that fact scenario?
Well, the key principle is you have to realize as a lawyer there are some people that you can persuade and deal with reasonably, and especially if they have a good lawyer, that lawyer will educate them that taking that position and that admission on the record is actually really going to be detrimental to their case, because from her perspective, I now have her saying, I'm more important than dad. Dad isn't relevant. The child's relationship, and it's the child's right to see dad, isn't relevant. It's all about mom. That's a great admission to help my case, and you're hoping that her lawyer will then say to her, you got to produce the child. The child needs to have a relationship with the dad.
Absolutely. And of course, to our viewers at home, Andrew's here to take your answers, or take your questions rather, so please feel free to call in. One thing that I want to draw upon, and this is again on the theme of increasing access to justice, is your white paper that you sent out. Can you talk a little bit about this and what this is about?
Well, it's a concept of us trying to explain what are some of the problems, what are some of the delays, why there is so much cost in family law, and trying to come up with creative solutions. On our website, it's timeforjustice.ca, we are actually asking the public for input. We want to get different people's ideas, and we want to try and advocate on behalf of that, as well as in further editions of the white paper, we're going to put forward some of our suggestions of how to improve access to justice. Because in my view, one of the most difficult challenges is whenever you hear suggestions to improve access to justice, we hear the same things. More money, more money, more money for legal aid. But there's a reality. In Ontario, we're operating with very large deficits. Funding of legal aid is not a sexy election campaign type of topic that you're going to hear someone getting elected because they're going to fund legal aid. So if we're going to come up with suggestions, we have to come up with suggestions that works within the money that's there right now.
And what were the most common suggestions that you found?
Well, some of my ideas, one deals with what's called limited retainers, or unbundling of legal services, which is a concept that right now when we're hired, we generally speaking do everything for the client. And limited retainers or unbundling of legal services is a concept where you can hire us to help you with specific tasks. So if a client wants help drafting their court materials, we can do it. If they want help coaching them in drafting or going to court, we can do that. Or if the client just wants us to go to a court appearance, they can do that. That way their money can be spent more efficiently. Now, what I equate it to is the comprehensive, where they hire us for everything, is like going out and getting your Mercedes-Benz. It may be a very safe car in an accident, that if you're in an accident, you want a Benz.
Right.
But by the same token, if you can't afford a Benz, would you rather be in an accident in a good, safe car, or would you rather be riding a bicycle?
Yes, absolutely.
And doing it yourself may be like riding a bicycle and getting hit by a car, versus you're driving a good, safe car, and at least get some information, get some knowledge, and you may be able to get to resolution of your case that way.
Well, I've seen this before, and I've actually received some emails previous to the show about parents that are representing themselves. I know this is a very broad question, but this is very often the case because people just can't afford legal advice as it stands. But I think that approach is excellent. What is the most common mistake you see people that are self-represented doing? The most common mistake?
Well, I'm going to start by approaching it twofold. Number one, when you hire a lawyer, one of the things you're getting beyond legal representation is objectivity. I mean, I'm going through the process myself right now, and I have outside counsel, and I know the process as well as anybody else, but I do second guess myself, because if I was representing myself, I have no objectivity.
Yes.
And I need to have another lawyer, so when I'm discussing my case with them, I'm able to say, is this reasonable? Does this make sense? Or am I behaving emotionally?
Yep.
Because in family law, it's full of emotion.
Absolutely.
And you don't want to be emotional. The second aspect of it is the knowledge of the law. And the problem that people who are self-represented face is, number one, it's complex. It can be difficult and challenging. It can be incredibly intimidating to go and try and discuss your matter in front of a judge.
Yep.
And as well, you might go and get the statute and read it and think you properly understand it. But if you read a lot of things in family law, many of the statutes will say the judge may. And a key word is may. And when you're dealing with a self-represented person, they'll say, but the statute says this, and you say, and you point out to them it says may, and they said, yes, we're going to go ask the judge for that. And I may say to them, in my 20 years of experience, I've never seen a judge do that. Because one of the things when you practice something day in, day out, is you understand how judges exercise discretion.
Yes.
And if you don't do it, you have no idea how they exercise discretion. And you may be asking for things that are incredibly unreasonable, which drags out the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's along the theme of emotion blinding you in the entire process. You know, and we only have a few seconds left, but in your white paper, I thought something that really points out to how people sometimes confuse their feelings with how the law actually operates is, if you can prove that your spouse is unfaithful, you can get more money in spousal and child support payments. True or false, if you will. I would love for you to answer that question. I think I know the answer. False, but that shows how emotions come into play. Do you see frequently that perspective?
Oh, absolutely. You see people all the time walking in, but my spouse cheated, and you take a husband who's going to have to pay spousal support, and they say, but my spouse is cheating, and you're telling me I got to pay spousal support? And I sit there, yes, you're going to pay spousal support. Yeah. And it's so hard for them to stomach it, but that's the law. And better to educate them right away and understand that, rather than having them fight for a year not to pay spousal support and going in front of a judge saying, I don't want to pay because she cheated or he cheated.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, a lot of these questions, a lot of these issues we're going to start to unfold during the longer segment, which is coming up. And of course, when we come back, tips on how to avoid an expensive and an emotionally damaging divorce or separation.